She arrived as a mail-order bride with Bruises. When the cowboy asked, "Who did this?" everything changed. The small train station sat quietly under the warm afternoon sun. Dust moved slowly across the ground as the wind passed through. It was not a place where many people came or went. Most days were the same, but today was different. Elijah Carter stood near the wooden platform, checking the time again. He was a tall man, calm and steady, known in the town as someone who kept his word. He didn't talk much, but when he did, people listened. Today, he was waiting for someone important, his mail-order bride. He had never met her before. They had only exchanged a few letters. Her name was Clara. From her letters, she seemed quiet but hopeful. Elijah had agreed to the marriage because he wanted a partner, not just someone to share his home, but someone to build a life with. Still, he felt unsure. What if she doesn't like this place, he thought. The sound of the train broke his thoughts. It came slowly, with a long whistle, and stopped at the station. A few people stepped down, travelers, workers, and families. Elijah watched carefully, looking for her. Then he saw her. A young woman stepped off the train, holding a small, worn suitcase. She paused for a moment, looking around like she wasn't sure where to go. That had to be Clara. Elijah walked toward her, calm but careful not to scare her. "Clara?" he asked gently. She looked up quickly. For a second, there was fear in her eyes. Then she nodded. "Yes, Elijah?" she replied softly. He gave a small nod. "That's right." For a moment, they just stood there. Neither of them knew what to say next. Then Elijah reached for her suitcase. "Let me help with that." She hesitated, but then slowly let him take it. As they began walking toward his wagon, Elijah noticed something. Clara moved carefully, like every step needed thought. She kept her head slightly down, avoiding eye contact. Her hands held tightly together, as if she was trying to stay steady. Something felt off. But Elijah didn't ask. Not yet. They climbed into the wagon, and Elijah guided the horses forward. The road to the ranch was long and quiet. The sun slowly began to lower in the sky. Clara sat beside him, silent. Elijah tried once. "The ranch isn't too far, about an hour." She nodded, but said nothing. After that, the silence returned. Clara's thoughts were racing. She didn't know what to expect. She had come here because she had no other place to go. The letters had seemed kind, but letters were not always the truth. She prepared herself for disappointment, or worse, coldness. But Elijah did not act like she expected. He didn't ask her many questions. He didn't look at her in a harsh way. He simply focused on the road, giving her space. That confused her more than anything. As they reached the ranch, the sky turned orange and gold. The land stretched wide, open and peaceful. A small house stood near a barn, simple but well cared for. Elijah stopped the wagon. "We're here," he said. Clara looked at the house. It was not grand, but it felt calm. Elijah stepped down and helped her gently. Again, she seemed unsure, but accepted his help. Inside the house, everything was clean and neat. A small table, 2 chairs, a stove, and a shelf with a few books. It was simple, but warm. Elijah placed her suitcase near the wall. "You must be tired," he said. "There's water to wash up, and I'll make some coffee." Clara blinked, surprised. "You will make it?" she asked quietly. Elijah gave a small smile. "Of course." She didn't respond. She just watched him for a moment. This was not what she expected. He moved calmly around the kitchen, preparing coffee without rushing. There was no anger in his movements, no pressure, just quiet kindness. He handed her a cup. "Here," he said. Clara took it slowly. Her hands trembled slightly. Elijah noticed, but said nothing. Instead, he spoke gently. "You don't have to worry here." She looked up at him for the first time. "What do you mean?" she asked. Elijah met her eyes, his voice calm and steady. I mean, you're safe here." The words were simple, but to Clara, they felt heavy. She didn't know if she could believe them. Not yet. But something inside her shifted, just a little. For the first time in a long while, she felt something unfamiliar. Not fear, not worry, but the smallest hint of peace. And she didn't know what to do with it. The days on the ranch passed slowly, but peacefully. Clara woke up early each morning, just before sunrise. She moved quietly around the house, careful not to make noise. Old habits were hard to forget. She always felt like she needed to stay small, unnoticed. But this place was different. Elijah never raised his voice. He never rushed her. He gave her space, but he was always nearby if she needed help. Still, Clara kept her distance. She helped with small tasks, cleaning, cooking, and feeding the chickens. She worked hard, as if she had something to prove, but she spoke very little. Elijah noticed everything. He noticed how she flinched at sudden sounds. He noticed how she avoided standing too close. He noticed how she always kept her sleeves pulled down, even when the weather was warm. Something wasn't right. But Elijah was patient. He knew some things could not be forced. One evening, the sky turned soft pink as the sun began to set. Elijah was fixing a fence outside while Clara prepared tea inside the house. The air was quiet and calm. Clara reached up to take the kettle from the shelf. As she did, her sleeve slipped slightly down her arm. For a brief moment, something was visible. Marks. Not fresh, but not very old either. Clara quickly pulled her sleeve back down, her heart beating fast. She looked toward the door, hoping no one had seen, but Elijah had just stepped inside. He froze for a moment. His eyes had caught it. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he walked in slowly, placing his hat on the table. He didn't want to scare her. Clara turned away, pretending nothing had happened. She poured tea into 2 cups, her hands slightly shaking. Elijah stepped closer, but kept a respectful distance. "Clara," he said softly. She stopped moving. "Yes," she replied, her voice quiet. There was a pause. Elijah chose his words carefully. "Who did this?" The question was simple. There was no anger in his voice, no demand, just quiet concern. Clara's breath caught. She didn't turn around. "I don't know what you mean," she said quickly, but her voice wasn't steady. Elijah didn't push. He didn't move closer. He just stood there, giving her time. "You don't have to tell me," he said gently. "Not if you're not ready." Clara felt something strange inside her. He wasn't forcing her. He wasn't angry. That made it harder to hide. She slowly turned around, holding the cup tightly. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she shook her head. "It's nothing," she whispered. Elijah looked at her, not with doubt, but with care. "It doesn't look like nothing," he said quietly. The room fell silent again. Clara's eyes filled with tears, but she tried to hold them back. She had learned not to speak about her past. Speaking had never helped before. But something about Elijah felt different, safe. She sat down slowly on the chair. Elijah stayed where he was, not too close, not too far. After a long moment, Clara spoke. "I didn't have a good life before this," she said softly. Her voice was shaking, but she continued. "The place I came from, it wasn't kind. People there didn't care how others felt. I had to work all the time. If I made mistakes, they weren't patient." She paused, taking a breath. "I thought coming here would be better, but I wasn't sure. I didn't know if I could trust it." Elijah listened carefully. He didn't interrupt. He didn't look away. Clara wiped her eyes and continued. "I didn't come here because I believed in a new life," she said. "I came because I had nowhere else to go." Those words hung heavy in the air. Elijah understood more now, but he didn't show anger. He didn't ask more questions. Instead, he nodded slowly. "I'm glad you came," he said. Clara looked at him, surprised. "You are?" she asked. "Yes," Elijah replied, "because now you don't have to live like that anymore." Clara didn't know what to say. She had never heard words like that before. Elijah spoke again, calm and steady. "You're not here as someone who owes anything," he said. "You're here as someone who belongs." Clara's eyes widened slightly. Belongs. That word felt new, strange, but also warm. She looked down at her hands. "I don't know how to be that," she admitted. Elijah gave a small, understanding smile. "That's all right," he said. "You don't have to know right away." He stepped toward the table and sat down across from her. "We'll figure it out, one day at a time." Clara felt something shift inside her again. A small piece of fear loosened its hold. For the first time, she didn't feel like she had to hide completely. She picked up her tea and took a small sip. The warmth spread through her hands, and slowly, very slowly, the silence between them began to feel less heavy. Not empty, but peaceful. And that night, for the first time in a long time, Clara slept without fear. The days began to feel different on the ranch. Not faster, not louder, but lighter. Clara no longer woke up with fear in her chest. She still rose early, out of habit, but now she sometimes stood by the window for a moment, watching the sunrise. The sky turned soft orange and gold, spreading across the land. It was quiet, but not lonely. It felt peaceful. Elijah noticed the change. Clara spoke a little more now, not much, but enough. She would ask small questions like how to fix a fence or how to take care of the horses, and Elijah always answered with patience. One morning, he handed her a set of reins. "Do you want to learn how to ride?" he asked. Clara looked at the horse, then back at him. "I've never done it before," she said. "That's all right," Elijah replied. "I'll teach you." She hesitated. Trying something new always made her nervous. What if she failed? What if she made a mistake? But Elijah didn't rush her. He simply stood there, waiting. After a moment, Clara nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. Elijah showed her slowly how to hold the reins, how to sit steady, how to guide the horse gently. He didn't expect her to be perfect. And when she made small mistakes, he didn't correct her harshly. He smiled. "That's part of learning," he said. Clara blinked, surprised. She wasn't used to that. Days passed and she practiced more. At first she was unsure, but slowly she grew more confident. One afternoon, as she guided the horse across the field, something unexpected happened. She smiled, a real smile. Elijah saw it from a distance. He didn't say anything, but it stayed with him. Clara was changing, and she didn't even realize it. Inside the house, things changed too. Clara no longer stayed silent during meals. Sometimes she shared small thoughts about her day. Sometimes she even laughed softly at Elijah's quiet jokes. The house felt warmer, less like a place to hide, more like a home. Still, there were moments when the past came back. One evening, a loud sound came from outside, the barn door slamming shut in the wind. Clara froze. Her body went still, her breath quick and shallow. Old fear returned in an instant. Elijah noticed right away. He didn't move too quickly. "It's just the wind," he said calmly. Clara didn't respond. She stared toward the door, her hands shaking slightly. Elijah stepped a little closer, but not too close. "You're okay," he said gently. His voice was steady, not loud, not sharp, just calm. Clara slowly looked at him. Her breathing began to slow. "It's nothing," she said quietly. Elijah shook his head slightly. "It's not nothing," he said, "but you don't have to face it alone." Clara looked down. Those words stayed with her. She wasn't alone. That thought felt new and slowly comforting. As weeks passed, Clara became more involved in the ranch. She helped plan the day's work. She made decisions. She walked beside Elijah instead of behind him. And Elijah treated her as an equal, not someone weak, not someone broken, but someone strong who just needed time. One morning, they worked together to fix part of the fence. Clara carefully tied the rope, checking her work. Elijah watched and nodded. "That's good," he said. Clara looked at him. "You mean it?" she asked. "Yes," he replied simply. She smiled again, this time without hesitation. That small moment meant more than she could explain. Later that evening, Clara sat outside on the porch, watching the sky grow dark. The stars slowly appeared one by one. Elijah joined her, sitting beside her quietly. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Clara broke the silence. "I used to think life would always feel heavy," she said softly. Elijah listened. "But now," she paused, searching for the right words, "it feels different here." Elijah nodded slightly. "I'm glad," he said. Clara looked at him. "You didn't try to change me," she said. "You just gave me space." Elijah gave a small smile. "Some things grow better that way," he replied. Clara thought about that, and she realized something important. She wasn't the same person who stepped off that train. Back then, she was afraid of everything. Now, she still had fear, but it didn't control her. She could stand. She could speak. She could choose. And for the first time in a long while, she felt strong. As the night grew deeper, Clara leaned back slightly, looking up at the stars. There was still a long road ahead. She knew that. Healing didn't happen all at once. But now, she wasn't walking that road alone. And that made all the difference. Elijah sat beside her, quiet and steady, just as he had always been. Not pushing, not rushing, just there. And for Clara, that was enough. The ranch felt like home now. Clara moved through the day with quiet confidence. Her steps were no longer careful out of fear, but steady with purpose. She knew where things belonged. She knew what needed to be done. And most importantly, she knew she belonged there too. One morning, as the sun rose gently over the land, Clara stood outside near the fence. The air was cool and the sky was clear. Elijah walked over, carrying a small toolbox. "You're up early," he said. Clara smiled lightly. "I like the mornings." Elijah nodded. "Me too." They stood side by side for a moment, watching the light spread across the fields. Everything felt calm. But peace does not always mean the past is gone. Sometimes it returns quietly. Later that day, Elijah went into town to get supplies. Clara stayed behind, working around the house. She cleaned, cooked, and checked on the animals. Everything felt normal, until she noticed something. A figure in the distance, someone standing near the edge of the road. Clara froze. Her heart began to beat faster. The person didn't move closer, but didn't leave either. Old fear returned like a shadow. Her hands tightened. For a moment, she thought about going inside and locking the door, running, hiding, just like before. But then, she stopped. Something inside her felt different now. She took a slow breath. "No," she whispered to herself. She was not the same person anymore. Clara stood straight. She didn't walk away. She didn't hide. Instead, she stayed where she was, watching, waiting. After a few minutes, the figure turned and walked away. Just like that. Gone. Clara didn't move for a moment. Then she slowly sat down on the porch. Her hands were shaking, but not as much as before. She had faced it, and she had not run. That mattered. When Elijah returned later that day, he noticed something right away. Clara looked calm, but thoughtful. "Everything all right?" he asked. Clara nodded slowly. "I think so," she said. Elijah waited. She looked at him and spoke again. "I saw someone today, near the road." Elijah's expression became serious, but not worried. "Did they come close?" he asked. "No," Clara replied. "They just stood there, then left." Elijah nodded. "You handled it?" he asked. Clara took a breath. "Yes," she said. "I didn't hide." Elijah looked at her for a moment. Then he gave a small smile. "I'm proud of you," he said. Clara felt warmth in her chest. Those words meant more than anything. That evening they sat together outside again. The sky was full of stars, just like many nights before. But tonight felt different. Clara was quiet for a while. Then she spoke. "I used to think I would always be afraid," she said. Elijah listened. "But today, I wasn't," she continued. "I was nervous, but I stayed." Elijah nodded. "That's strength," he said. Clara looked at him. "I didn't find that strength alone," she said softly. Elijah didn't respond right away. He understood what she meant, and he respected it. After a moment, he said, "You had it inside you already." Clara shook her head slightly. "Maybe," she said, "but you helped me see it." The words were simple, but they carried truth. Days turned into weeks. The ranch continued to grow, not just in work, but in life. Clara laughed more now. She spoke freely. She walked through the world without lowering her head. And Elijah remained the same, steady, kind, and patient. Together, they built something strong, not just a home, but a place filled with trust. One morning, Clara stood again at the train station, but this time she wasn't arriving. She was simply visiting the town with Elijah. She looked at the same platform where she had once stepped down, afraid, unsure, and alone. It felt like a different lifetime. Elijah stood beside her. "Thinking about something?" he asked. Clara nodded. "I remember how I felt that day," she said. Elijah waited. "I thought my life would never change," she continued. She looked at him and smiled. "I was wrong." Elijah gave a quiet smile in return. "Yes," he said, "you were." As they walked back toward the wagon, Clara felt something deep and clear inside her. Peace. Not the quiet kind that hides fear, but the strong kind that comes after facing it. She had come to the ranch with doubt, with pain, with a past she could not escape. But now, she had something new, a future she could choose. And as she stepped forward beside Elijah, she knew one thing for certain. Everything had changed. Not just because someone asked her a question, but because someone stayed, listened, and gave her the chance to become strong again.